But you're gonna have.
President of the Sea Pines Property Owners Association. And it's my pleasure to welcome you and to call our meeting to order. Okay, I just want to keep our sponsors. And we've never had sponsors for anything before in my recent history. And we're very appreciative of Brightview Landscaping, IMC Resort Services. You may be familiar with them, some of your regimes that handle administrative work. Sea Pines Real Estate at the Beach Club, the Sea Pines Resort, and the shops at Sea Pines Center. Thank you very, very much. So it's my pleasure to officially call this meeting to order. And Mr. Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Madam President, we do have a quorum, so we are ready to go.
Thank you. I will accept a motion to approve the 22 annual meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? So moved. Do we have a second? Thank you. We have a second. All those in favor? Now that is a cooperative audience. Thank you very much. I don't know what we were going to do. Oh, is anybody opposed? I don't hear it. Okay, and I forgot to get my champagne. I'd like to start the meeting with a toast. I think on our 50th anniversary, it's okay to take a moment. And I would like to start the toast to our first 50 years that began with a brilliant visionary on the most beautiful island and with leaders who gave generously of their time and for the good of their fellow property owners. May that always continue. Hear, hear. Also, the mayor was working overtime, I guess, and he was kind enough to share a proclamation with us. Oh, look at that. I didn't share the champagne glass. Okay, and here's the proclamation from our mayor. I don't want to read it to you. The people at home can see it. You have it on the inside cover of the annual report. But I did want to share my favorite whereas, which was Charles Frazier, who created Sea Pines, was one of the sponsors for the creation of ASPO, and ASPO was our predecessor. So if anybody ever asked the question 50 years ago, what would Charles do? What would Charles think? I would say emphatically, he was in favor of us. So this is officially Sea Pines Property Owners Association Day. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, President's remarks. I'm just going to zip through 2020 and 2021 because it was pretty boring stuff. We were doing a lot of administrative work. We had CSA held our administrative contract for a number of years, and we felt that it was important that we operate more independently. We're a volunteer nonprofit. Our business model was very different. So we hired IMC, and we see ourselves as the voice of and the advocate for property owners. We went through something like almost a company of due to start. Building list, land use management. We worked on that, sent that over to CSA, co-funded the land use monitor, worked on the low decibel leaf blower policy. And I also think that there's some more opportunity on that. Excuse me, as gasoline prices have gone up and technology is racing ahead. I'm not sure this is exactly what I mean, but yeah, it can't hurt. Banning gas-powered leaf blowers is really looking quite a bit more attractive. But the fun didn't really start until last year. And we had a board who was very energized. They volunteered a lot of their time. And quite frankly, they had more talent than I have in 10 of my bodies. It was pretty impressive. So one of the first things we did was we held the lectures, this was our first, I guess, putting our big toe into the local political arena. But it's important for property owners when you realize how big Sea Pines really is. So we invited the mayoral candidates and Steve, our town council candidate, to come speak. And we had over 100 people there. It was a very nice showing from them as well as from us. And I think both benefited. We have an incredible newsletter now. Lori Wellinghoff, who you'll meet in a minute, has re-energized that. This is just one example. And again, if you're getting it, shame on you. We just need your email address and your membership. So there you go. Third Tuesdays was a lecture series that we started. Lori identified a lot of speakers. The ones that we had in 2002, you probably recognize all of these. I don't think I need to tell you who they are. I mean, we pretty much grew up with them on the island. This year, we had 4 more. And then I have a shameless promotion for next month, which is the last one before the summer hiatus. I would give you his name.
Next Garnowitz,
Garnowitz.
and then the third Tuesday, and it's back at the community center.
And we're back at the community center. So, covenant modernization, there's a lot more activity going on with that right now. But last year was where it really started. We believe very strongly that change comes from within. And you can't just do something. I mean, you need to socialize it. You need to talk to a lot of the thought leaders, your neighbors, the community, to see what people think, to see if they're embracing a concept. So last year was a lot of the spade work that started that enabled us to do some of the work that we're doing this year. A peek at this year's, even though we're supposed to be talking about last year. We started the petition drive. And this is not for the Property Owners Association. This is for all property owners. Oh, that's not, okay, wait a minute, I can fix that. It's bad enough to hear me once, much less twice right there. But anyway, it's on behalf of all the property owners. And we think that's important because yes, we're the voice for all of them. We wish all of them were members. We hope at some point they will be. But we've collaborated. We've met with the neighborhood property owners, the presidents of the Property Owners Association. We've met with the resort. We met with the shops at Sea Pines Center, some other commercial. So this is not new. We've been talking about it for a while. We're looking for volunteers if anybody's interested in helping us getting names. We're looking for close to 600 names on a petition, and they have to be gathered manually. The whole idea of this petition is to, amend the 1973 covenants so that when signatures are required or a vote is required, it can be done electronically. It no longer has to be done manually. So we're adding the option, not taking anything away. This is all additive. John Surrey is our treasurer, and I'm glad I can't hear him. I'm sure he's frustrated. He's sitting in Charlotte trying to get here. So I asked Keith Burns, who's our secretary, to be our secretary treasurer for the purposes of today. So Keith.
Thank you, Paula. I'll add my welcome as well. Glad you're all here. It's quite a crowd, very distinguished. Let's look at this statement, the income statement, and I'll just pick out a few things here just to point out. Yeah, it takes a while for it to get from there to there. So I'm by training an accountant as well. So I go down to the bottom line. What's listed here is the profit or loss. And you'll see for the last fiscal year, 2022, this is also in your annual report document if you want to find it in there as well. We had a net revenue over expenses of $62,668. Compared to last year, 2021, we had a very, very small deficit or excess expenses of 4,144. If you look at the detail of the pieces, it becomes pretty clear. I won't read you the whole thing, but there are a couple of highlights I do want to give to you. You see the membership dues were down slightly from 21 to 22. It was about $7,600, which represents 150 members because we kept the membership fee at $50. It's been at $50 for quite a long time. So that represents a decline in members of about 150. And in 22, we had 3,317 members. This is again a shameless plug. As you all well know, we've had a fair amount of turnover in our community in the last 18 to 24 months. And going back to 2009, when my wife Peg and I got here, admittedly, it's a little confusing between what is mandatory of CSA, what is in your neighborhood POA if you have a neighborhood regime, and what is the ASPO formerly, or ASPO, or the CPI's now POA. So shameless plug, please have your friends and neighbors talk to them, have them join CPI's POA for the $50. There's a lot of benefits, and the board is focused on increasing the benefits that are tangible, such as the third Tuesday and various other activities. But as Paula said, we're actually an advocate. We're the advocate for the property owners in our community. And so it's in their best interest, all our best interest, to have as many voices as possible. On the expense side, Paula mentioned also the land use monitor transitioned 100% to CSA. So you'll see we saved $34,000 there. Our insurance went down a little bit. Our management fees, while it went up from 23 to 30, actually was under budget. So that worked out pretty well. And thankfully, our legal fees have dropped between 21 and 22. But still, they're meaningful to our budget. So all in all, it was a good year from a financial point of view, and expense control had a lot to do with it. If you look at the 23 budget, it's a lot of the same old, same old. We kept the membership dues number roughly the same amount as the last 2 years, 170,000, hoping that we will be able to increase our membership from 2022. And the expense side looks pretty much the same as well, with the elimination of land use monitor, et cetera. The total expense number last year was 110,695 for expected for this next year of 126,000. So that would yield us about a $45,000 excess revenue, and our intention, at least right now, bearing any unforeseen circumstances, will be to put that in reserves, which are essentially on the balance sheet down on the bottom part, the investment number of 350,000. We would like to get that number to 500 over the next couple of years, just to have good financial reserves in place should we ever need it for unforeseen events. That pretty much sums up the financial report. When it comes time for Q&A at the end, I would certainly be happy to go back to any of these slides, as well as any other general financial questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Keith. I know filling in with less than 24 hours notice isn't always somebody's favorite. But a little bit about your board of directors. This year was very sad for us. We had to say farewell to two people that we worked very closely with and we admired very much. The first was David Ellis, who was our vice president. I guess you figured out he didn't really disappear. And we're thrilled to see him as chairman of CSA. Can't think of anybody who would do a better job, quite frankly. And Grover Todd, I didn't see Grover here today. Grover was our treasurer, and it was almost like a founding father, figuring out our budget, formatting it, teaching us what we need to track or what have you. Grover was very involved in the budgeting process as well as the financial investment side too. I want to introduce you to today's board. In 2022, we elected 3 people. One was Keith Burns, our secretary, who you met. Carrie DeVillette, who was reelected. He's our webmaster. Ed Hughes, who is our government liaison. Take a look. And our other board members, Lori Allenbach here, Greg Thompson, Lee Stevens, and Larry Holdren is our ex officio, and Lori Wellinghoff is sitting on his left too. So I'm very excited about this board. I can't keep up with them, to be honest with you. For this year, for the elections that we're running this year, our nominating committee will be Keith Burns, John Surrey, and Greg Thompson. In order to vote, and you can vote electronically according to our bylaws, according to vote, the date of record is September 30th. I just wanted to mention a little bit about the board, which is why I get kind of excited. Ed Hughes was the senior counsel at Nexaput, and he just retired last year. He actually did some work for ASPO a while back, but he's done a lot of work in the real estate development community. Locally, he was involved in Wexford, Indigo Run, Hilton Head Plantation, and most recently in the acquisition and development of Palmetto Bluff. So I think we're very blessed to have somebody that has that much background in master planned communities. Keith Burns, who you saw, is another recent retiree, and he was a managing partner from Ernst & Young. And he brings to us a very rich background, board participation and leadership. Carrie DeVillette is a recently retired healthcare software and services executive and is the principal and managing partner of a boutique property management firm here in Sea Pines. So you can see, I think we're getting, we're moving here. I mean, we are moving. So I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. At the annual meeting last year, there were an enormous number of questions. We solicited them electronically first, and I was surprised at the feedback. We got like 48. So I'm not going to sit here and answer them all. I bucketized them and can summarize some of them for you. But I will tell you that if there were POA questions, of course we answered them. But to sum it up, received a lot of opinions. And we say thank you, because I have to tell you, it's very gratifying to see people with that kind of engagement. It's clear, and I think everybody in the room would agree, we do not live in a perfect world. I don't know that we're going to, but there's a real curiosity on how things run in Sea Pines. I mean, and as I'm going through this, I'm like, oh my goodness. So I'm thinking, yes, we do a lecture series, but I'm thinking perhaps something we should also be looking at is a couple of workshops, one on the ARB, one on the 74 covenants, I mean, because these things are, somebody said it would be $500,000 if we tried to get the covenants in plain English and in order and no circular statements. What I mean by that is where something is amended, but then it's unamended, but then it's amended again. Because agreements layered on top of the covenants have that kind of influence. So bottom line is the covenants are complicated, but they're also very unique. They're the first of their kind, and we all know that with Fraser. And like the first of anything, I remember the first decaf coffee, nobody else can. I happen to have been in the advertising business. It's nowhere now, but the second one that came along that learned from all the mistakes is still very well known. So at best, the covenants are brilliant in their concept and a little imperfect in their execution. So, for another 50 years, that's something to work on. The first bucket was ARB, and I'm going to ask Lee Stevens, the regulations for home lot size ratio. Lee, if you want. I told him he had to do this in 30 seconds or less.
So I think the question was, there's several. So there, thank you. Regulations for home and lot size. There's 3 lot types in Sea Pines. Patio lots, which some of you may be familiar with, garden lots, and full-size lots. And each has its own set of regulations as far as setbacks, front setbacks, side setbacks. And then we also look at a ratio of the heated area of the house to the size of the lot. And that's how we determine if it meets those specifications, then it gets approved as far as size is concerned. And then, of course, there's the architectural view of it and whether that is acceptable or not. The second question is what's being done to prevent overbuilding in McMansions. And McMansions is kind of an interesting term that's going around. The example I use is that a lot of houses here in Sea Pines, particularly in certain neighborhoods that we consider neighborhoods in transition, have homes that were built in the 70s on grade. Since that time, flood regulations at the national level have changed, and minimum standard for quite a while now has been 14 feet. So if you take a 2,000 square foot house that's on grade and build next to it a 2,000 square foot house that's 14 feet off the ground, even though they're exact same size house, one looks extremely larger than the other. And we can't ask somebody to build on grade. The current building code is 14 feet. So the question then became, well, the height of the houses are becoming, large. But again, if you start on grade, the standard had always been 35 feet to the peak of the roof. You raise that house 14 feet, you get to 49 feet. So we set the standard a couple of years ago at 50 feet just to make it a nice round number. So that's why you're seeing houses that are larger today. They may not be in square footage, but they certainly look at from the street because of the fact that they're so far off the ground. 3-year renovation, remind me what that.
Oh, that was the one. The answer is it depends. Is it CF?
Oh, the question, yeah, I remember now. The question was if there's an ongoing project of renovation, when ARB issues a permit, it's good for 1 year. Certainly with what's been going on since COVID, projects can take longer than that just in finding a contractor. So you can come back during that year and ask for an extension. However, if you don't, then your permit expires, and if the construction continues, then you're in violation of that permit. And it could become a situation where you have to apply for the permit all over again and pay the fees. So if it's work that was completed and then a new project is started without ARB approval, then it becomes a CSA land use management issue, not an ARB issue to enforce that.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. I failed to mention he is one of our representatives to the ARB. So, and he gives us a report at every board meeting. Thank goodness. The next bucket was renters of bicycles. And the question was, does the Sea Pines POA have a position on electric bicycles? And the answer is no, we have not taken a position. Not that it's not a grave situation, but we know that the CSA, not only have they asked for property owners' input, but they've also put together, well, David can tell you this, but he's also put together a task force. And there's more research that has been made available. So I think that a very well thought out recommendation will be coming out of that. And it was a duplication of efforts. A lot of these others were suggestions for the bike paths and what have you. The status of the short-term rental fee, and I took this to mean CSA's short-term rental fee. CSA is formulating that. They will be communicating that back out to the property owners. It has not come out yet. They were thinking spring. So I'm thinking it's imminent. The leaf blower topic was that brought to conclusion. It was in that we put together a policy. We recommended it. The board voted unanimously on it a couple years ago. And it went over to CSA, who with some adjustments approved it and put it out for comment and then put it into effect. But like I said earlier, I think there's more opportunities there. Legal, what is the status of the appeal? There's a referendum lawsuit that's still going on and it is in appeal. The plaintiff filed an open brief and CSA, the resort and Sea Pines POA, who are all part of this lawsuit, will be filing their briefs around May 1. We got a thank you for the incremental annual assessment. We also got a, where are you spending all this money? And where is it going? Because there was a list from CSA that said that the money was going to be spent on X, Y, and Z. So while we get the budget updates from CSA, hopefully there'll be a little bit more extra information on that specific category. Gate issues in Tower Beach. A lot of this is a rehash. Although I applaud CSA for getting an app out for us to use on our phones for the gate passes. When it came out, it wasn't introduced as the final product. You know, it said be patient, and there are issues. You can't make changes once you've made your reservation. If they on an iPhone, it fades in the light, the data is too small. So work will continue on that. When does the gate fee go to $20? And could you please do that? Put the surplus in to offset our assessments. Okay, we'll do that tomorrow. It's very, as you know, it's a difficult thing to do. And when the time is right, it will happen. Could we have an owner's only gate? And the answer there is yes, if you can find us some land, because right now the gates are using local land. But the idea is wonderful. And I think the owners are very deserving of having their own gate. I don't know that that's ever been the issue. It's been the land, the property. When will traffic problems at the gate be resolved? Why aren't we using the property on the old gallery shops? Again, some of these things will be going to CSA in the form of a letter. So just if I don't have an answer, you know, it's going to CSA or another party. Bring back the Christmas party at Tower Beach. I asked somebody when that was, and she went, oh my God, that was years ago. And I'm like, okay. So duly noted, allow caterers access to 4 p.m. to service parties. I see a problem there. There are, again, in our imperfect world, you can see, I'm not going to read them all, but you can see some of the issues. Geez, speeding. Oh my God. You know, has anybody ever sped? I just went to traffic school. So, you know, for my speeding ticket. So I can't, you know, I can't get too bad. Anyway. And I think another bucket was what I call change. And change is so hard, and people really struggle with it. And I thought this was a particularly good example. Some people were very concerned about changing the covenants. We've loved them for 50 years. Now, I think that's possible. I really do. But I think there's opportunities, and if we don't take advantage of those opportunities, it ends up costing us more money. We're trying to get rid of U.S. first-class mail, for crying out loud. Everybody that's moving down here grew up on a computer. So, you know, I just think turnover change is very difficult. Pickleball courts for property owners. Yes, you know, and again, we're built out. So it'll be very interesting. I think something like that would happen. You know, what's happening with Sea Pines Racquetball? I don't have an answer. They have not filed with the ARB. So that's usually, you know, when things happen. I want to thank you for joining us today very much. Before we adjourn, I would like to get to your questions, if you have them. And Lori Wellinghoff will bring the mic around if you have them.
I'd just like to know so many pine trees in the world of people's lives. It's really happening. And it's a shame. Those trees, these are trees that are in good shape, not the ones that are dead, ones that are still thriving. I don't understand why so many are being cut down, and they're huge. Really a shame.
Mr. ARB.
The standard is that anything under 6 inches can be cut down without permit. If it requires a permit, the ARB employs an arborist who you fill out a form to have a tree cut down, and the arborist comes out and determines whether there's a valid reason for it to be cut down. So it's not something that comes in front of the Architectural Review Board. It's handled by the arborist that's on call for the ARB. and each situation is unique. So without knowing the specifics, but we are seeing a lot of pine trees down. And from what I've heard, and I'm not an expert on this, that a lot of the trees that are in sea pines have reached what would typically be end of life as far as their age, and therefore that may be why the arborist is allowing them to be cut down. I agree.
Thank you. Have a seat.
There's an insurance company and it was taken trees because we're told by the insurance, like, they would get.
Yeah, by show of hands, how many have had their insurance companies suggest tree removal? I know we have to, yeah. That's a good point, and thank you.
Okay, all I can say is I've had 2 pine trees that I, one of them is here now, and then to the road. And the other one is just about a year ago, there was a storm, there was something happening, and it was, both of these trees were my neighbor's trees, but they were both pine trees, and they came down on the house. And the second one caused minimal damage, still at my house.
Thank you. Other thoughts, other questions? No, any other questions?
I have 2 things to say. One is, I went to, the Coaching Discovery Museum to a native plant. Our pine trees are a species that age out at 7 years. So a lot of them aging out. Longleaf are the native species, and they live to be 250 years old. So, we took a pine tree down because it was aging out over the top of our house. We put in 3 longleaf. So there's a little naturalist with it for you. And then, Polly, you said something that made me think, our membership is strong, but if I don't think he represents the entirety of the property first of sequence. And so I would ask each one of you, they run to the left, they run to the right, ask them if they belong, they'll say yes. Ask them if it's Astros, he finds the into that complicated conversation. And then tell them to go to sequencepoa.com and join for $50, and we will show them that. And also do a lot of good work advocating for, please go to your left, go to your right, do your job. Any questions?
Thank you very, very much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Pete,
If they haven't already done it, sign the petition.
if you have not signed the petition, one signature per lot, per property. I would remind you to sign it on the way out. Okay, so motion, second, all in favor? We are officially adjourned. The bar is open. Could you see how many people? No.